is the Wayne Ayers Podcast. The Wayne Ayers Podcast. Woohoo! Time to wake your ass up for a blessed day.
How's everything with you?
Everything's good, man. Everything's good. I'm, we moved to New York a year ago, my wife and I, just a little over a year ago. So I still feel like I can't believe time flies so fast, first of all, but also I just feel like I'm still settling in and loving the city and exploring, seeing theater and art and stuff. It's great.
Yeah, I know New York is really special, man. They have literally everything. Outside the cold weather, it's literally everything. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, but I don't mind the cold weather. I lived in LA for a while, and I love the seasons. I like having the change between the seasons, and a little bit of cold is nice. You get to wear your winter wardrobe, and all of that stuff. So yeah, I don't mind it.
No, yes. Okay, I want to get started to you because you're an amazing actor. I want to know, was there how did you get started? When did you realize you want to become an actor?
So what it was, Wayne, was so when I was growing up, I wanted to be a rock star first. I was obsessed with Oasis and with Liam Gallagher and those guys. And so I had a band and I bought a tambourine. I was fully trying to emulate that. But I always loved doing the school plays as well. And so I was coming up to 16 and I didn't want to stay in school. I wanted to go to college, and my mom found this performing arts course for me to do. So I started doing that, which was a bit of music, but it was acting as well. And I became kind of obsessed with Quentin Tarantino and his movies. I found these books of his scripts, published scripts of his, and I read them before I even saw a bunch of the movies. And I thought, these are incredible, so good. And I pivoted and I decided I want to be a writer-director. That's what I want to do. And I became obsessed with that. And then I thought, well, how do I do that? How do I become that? And I thought the best way, I think, is to get a background in acting. So I started applying for drama schools in London so I could go to a credible drama school. And I thought, if I can become an actor, I can pivot from being an actor then into being a writer-director, which is my real dream. And then I just kind of fell in love with acting along the way.
That is crazy. No, that's crazy to no, because all right, I know you want to become a writer, but you're everybody loves you as the actor. That's kind of crazy, the pivot right there. No, yeah. So I want to know when was when did I know everybody loves you now and everything. I want to know when did you realize, hey, I'm actually good at this acting stuff?
So obviously I realized early on that I was definitely better at that than the idea of being a rock star. So I knew early on that I should move in this direction instead. And then, getting into drama school was a big win for me because it's extremely competitive to get into the drama schools in London. It's thousands of people apply and they take about 30 people a year. So I thought I might be onto something here. And then, honestly, my career has been filled with moments of feeling extremely confident and I know I'm really great, and then feeling extremely self-conscious and I'm terrible at all of this. What am I doing? I'm wasting my time, And I think that's sort of a lot of people's experience with acting is you have great moments where you get these fantastic jobs and you feel really confident. And then as soon as the job finishes, you think, am I ever going to work again? And then you get another job and you think, I knew I was going to work again. It was all going to be fine. I knew it. I had faith in myself. And it's really what I'm trying to do as I get older in this profession is try and find a kind of happy medium to live in. So my life isn't so up and down in that way, because it's weird, man. I started my career, I left drama school early to do Master and Commander, which was a film in Mexico with Russell Crowe. And I'd only been abroad about 2 times in my life before. So it was life-changing. And I thought, okay, here I go. I'm on the rocket ship to stardom. And then, then I think after that, it was about 6 months before I got my next job. So I'd spent all the money ridiculously. And I started to feel like, oh my God, was that it? Is that my one job? Am I done? And then I got something else. And so it's really been an interesting experience of sort of having extreme faith in myself and then feeling extremely insecure. And then, of course, Vampire Diaries kind of took my profile through the roof, and everybody went back and watched all my old jobs and joined all the dots. And, you know, it looks like I've had this long established career, but really to me, it's felt like a lot of stops and starts.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. Speaking of Vampire Diaries, you know, you play Klaus and everything. Everybody loves that. Do you remember, like, do you have like a beginning memory on like the first set of being there? Like, dang, like this show could be like how it is now. Like, this is gonna be a classic show in everybody's eyes.
Well, I mean, the show was already popular when I joined it. So, like, really, to a certain extent, I kind of jumped on the coattails of like what Ian and Paul and Nina were doing, you know, by the show was already a hit. But I didn't know how much my character, Klaus, was anticipated. Like, and I realized as I started to watch season 2, preparing for the audition and stuff, that they were mentioning the character a lot. And then I remember after I auditioned, a friend of mine at the time rang me and he said, it's all over the press that they're like circling you for this role. You know how they do that? Like they're circling this person for this role. And I thought, oh man, this is a bigger deal than I thought. I just thought it was like to play some old vampire, which I wanted to do. I was excited about, but I had no idea the role would have so much impact. And I think they did this thing where when my character first came on, he was in a different body. And so I think they did that in case I messed it all up. Then they could just have him jump body again and cast someone else, you know.
So speaking of that, like, how was that jump to like the original? Because now you got the own spin-off and everything. Like, so like, how is it like, hey, Klaus is also he's going to be the main star of the original, the show. Like, how was that pitched to you and everything?
So, I think really the fans made that happen. So there was a lot of fan-made trailers for the originals before it was ever a show or a concept. And, you know, I absolutely loved working with Daniel Gillies and Claire Holt, who played Elijah and Rebecca. You know, they were my favorite actors on the set to work with. And I just thought they were terrific. And we had a good amount of scenes that were just us together without any of the other cast. And we started to feel like, wouldn't this be amazing if this was the show? Because, you know, those guys, they have such a level of professionalism. Like they really come to set knowing their stuff and really talented as well and ready to work. And I just felt like there's a dynamic here, which is so interesting and I want to explore. So me and Claire decided to meet up with to try and have a dinner with Julie Plec to see if we could pitch to her, you know, like, look, we want to do this spin-off and the fans are already talking about it. And do you think this could be a thing? But before we got to do that, about a week before we were planning on doing that, we got this offer through for the show from them. So they'd already been thinking about it. They already realized it could be a thing. And so, yeah, that came through, the offer for the three of us to do it. And we were all so excited. And for me, you know, look, I love to work more than anything. So I want to be on set. And so for Vampire Diaries, I was in the show a lot, but maybe I averaged like working about 3 days a week. And the originals, I was every day. And that for me is like my happy place. I wanted to be there every day. I wanted to be leading the show. I wanted to be setting that example and playing all of those scenes and dealing with that, you know, emotional roller coaster. And so it was incredible, like incredible to go from joining the show as a guest star to becoming a regular on Vampire Diaries to getting my own show off. That was just like a dream journey, really.
No, yeah. I don't know if you've seen like recently on social media, like people are talking about like, yeah, Klaus had to really dagger his siblings here and there. Like they kind of agree with it. Like, how do you feel about like fans? Like, man, they kind of agree with some of the stuff Klaus does, but also like, how do you feel about the whole fandom with Klaus?
I think it's good that they are questioning their own morality by agreeing with, like, he's done some terrible things. It's undeniable, you know what I mean? And that for me was always the interesting thing, because he was a villain when he came into the show. You know, playing a character like that, my job is to understand where he's coming from and his motivations and to try and, you know, be true to that. So it feels like a believable, grounded performance. But what I wanted to do is bring everybody else on board as well. So they started to feel for him. And I knew I could do that through his vulnerability and through the cracks in his character. And his feeling for his family, that kind of thing. And so what I wanted them to do is to start to root for him and then to kind of question, wait a minute, I'm rooting for this terrible person. And so that was really a big win for me to kind of bring the audience on board, even though he did all these awful things. You know, they forget about that stuff. They remember all these little beautiful moments that they love about the character. They forget about him drowning Tyler's mom in a fountain at Christmas and things like that, you know. That stuff gets swept under the rug.
Yeah, because like sometimes it's like, all right, like he dagger his siblings, but then you like look at it like his siblings were tripping here and there. Like, why are you also scheming against your brother? But I don't know. It's like I think it's great to see how like dysfunctional families really are. Like, I feel like that's kind of like family. Like, it's very dysfunctional.
And that's the success of the show. I think, you know, the originals. That's really what like drew so many people to it, because I think there's a relatability with the family that you like, you love them, but they drive you crazy, you know? And I think a lot of people connect to that. And then also, you know, and this is something, my wife was on the show, Persia White, you know, and we met on the show. And so then going into the originals, she was very much a part of that with me. In fact, like encouraging me, like, this is a great move to make, you know, to do this. And then she'd read all the lines with me. We'd go through all the scenes every night. And she and I worked really hard during the show and after the show as well with the fandom to sort of shift that brand that we created from sort of the teen heartthrobby kind of thing that the Vampire Diaries was more based around into a sort of family dynamic. A family is everything. And that whole always and forever motto that they have on the originals, you know, I felt like that was something people really connected to. And we really pushed that agenda, like taking care of each other. The fandom as well, becoming this found family that like we're going to look out for each other and we're going to be there for each other always and forever. And everybody's a part of this. Everyone's connected to this.
Nice. Okay, I know you mentioned your wife Persia because she's a legend too, in my eyes for sure. Did you watch Girlfriends before you guys met at all? I know
not before we met. No, I wasn't aware of it. You know, and the funny thing is, like, there's a lot of like gaps in culture for me because of being British and coming to America, where we still talk about shows. Sometimes she and I am like, I've never heard of that show, or I don't know. I know Girlfriends crossed the pond, but for me, I wasn't familiar with it. So I became, and she's so humble, Matt, you know, like she would mention she was on this show. And of course, you know, when you're interested in someone, I looked her up and, you know, like, who's this girl and all of that. But like, really, the fandom for her was so intense. Like, where we were in Atlanta filming Vampire Diaries, I started to realize as she and I would go out that like, oh, people really love her. Like, she's like a huge deal for these people. So that was amazing for me to see. And, you know, it's incredible, really, because both of us have been a part of these shows that it's a different kind of fandom, Wayne. It's like, there's a passion to the fandom for Girlfriends and for Vampire Diaries and the originals as well, where people connect in a different way, and it's really emotional, you know, that connection. And so it was amazing as well to be with her all through doing the originals, and her to be saying, look, I've done this. I was on a show for 8.5 years, and when it was driving me crazy and I was like, I've had enough of it, you know, I need to get out of here. She said, it'll be over in the blink of an eye. Stick with it. This is like a special time, you know. And so her experience there was invaluable to me.
No, yeah, I know you guys both shows really are like different out of this world. Even like when they're like, oh, it's going on Netflix and it's like hits #1s on Netflix for both of the shows. It's crazy. No, yeah. Oh, speaking of that, you guys ever talk about like you guys are TV legends? Like you ever talk about like, all right, we're gonna make our own show, da da da. Like you guys got the ingredients. You guys done it before. Like, have you guys ever talked about that?
Yeah, of course we do. And we started a production company together recently called Morgan White Productions. And so we are currently, you know, we're pushing a few projects. We're taking a few projects to market. We've got a couple of film projects, and we're developing something in the TV space together as well. So yeah, definitely that's something we're interested in. You know, we're both filmmakers. We made a number of short films whilst we were on Vampire Diaries and the originals. We brought together the crew and we put together short films. We made music videos together for Persia's album, and we've also, I directed on the originals as well. So we definitely have an interest in filmmaking and building something together in the TV space. What we really want to do is service the fans as well, Wayne, because we connected with the fans at another level during lockdown because everybody was stuck in their houses. And so we started doing these online shows really on, through a platform called Stage It in the beginning, where people would come in and they come to these shows that we do, and we'd sort of connect with the fans. We'd do poetry, we'd do prizes, we'd do all sorts of different elements, little performance stuff. But it was really about connecting with them and making them feel like they were part of something. And it became this incredibly sort of tight community, this core group of fans who we've connected with now. And when we go to the conventions, we know so many people by name and we know so many people's journey. We've seen some of these guys grow up since they were kids, through the fandom. And there's a lot of mother-daughters that come who their mums love the show and then they introduce their daughters to it. And so what we really want to do is do some kind of TV project that resonates with the fans. That's really important to us. So yeah, we are developing at the moment and we definitely have the ingredients to make it happen, but we're looking at how do we involve the fans in that? How do we bring everyone along for the ride?
So would you guys like speaking of that, I want to be would you guys want to do like a streaming or TV, strictly TV, the old school way, like cable, or would you what kind of way are you thinking about that?
Well, to a certain extent, it's like you develop your pitch and your show, and then you take it out to as many people as you can, and you see who is more interested. But certainly, a lot of what we watch is streaming now, and I think there's a freedom in that. When the show that I did and that Persia did was a network show, so it's a different kind of animal because I did 22 episodes a year. You do 9.5 months a year. You film 8 days an episode, and on the 8th day, they're already starting the next episode. So you've got 2 crews working at once, and it's amazing and exhausting and incredible. And it's a model that's not done so much anymore. Whereas the streaming shows, you have less, and they're also you notice that they're not a set time. Like some of them are, they're not 42.5 minutes every show because you've got to allow for commercials. So
no, yeah,
it's I think probably the streaming stuff is the stuff I'm more drawn towards.
So you would rather do an 8-episode hour?
I mean, I'm okay with doing more episodes. It's not that so much. It's that the freedom you get from streaming is a little bit first of all, I think there's more money in it in general to make the episodes, which means maybe you have more opportunities because of that. But also your story isn't inhibited by having to be a set amount of seconds. You can be a little bit longer or a little bit shorter depending on what the story requires. And there's some really exciting shows, I think, happening in the streaming space now. And having, the last 2 shows I worked on were streaming on HBO Max and then on Paramount Plus, and it was an amazing experience to me. Seeing also the because of that slightly bigger budgets, you have longer time to make the shows. It allows a little bit more prep time and a little bit more time for shooting, which is nice. But really, it's about finding the platform that's most passionate for it.
Nice. Oh, I just speaking. I know you just spoke about how they would have to do the 42-minute episodes. I want to know was there any scenes cut from originals that you man, I wish they would have got into this episode, because I know you guys had a time limit for each one.
Yeah, there was some scenes, not many, because the thing about the writers on the originals, some of them came from the Vampire Diaries as well, but in general they were just so good at they were so tight and they knew what would be required. But there was some stuff that was cut for story, so I directed an episode and there was a moment where Daniel Gillies and Elijah and Klaus were in this sort of white corridor, which was in his mind. And there was a red door at the end of the corridor and he had to break through the door to sort of free himself from this prison he'd put himself in his mind. And that ended up getting cut because we did it a different way in the episode, just story. But we filmed it and I just loved the look of the whole thing. I would have liked to have seen that. But in general, most of the story stayed in, I think. And I'm not sure that there was any big pivotal moments that got cut. A lot of the time, stuff got cut at the script stage, we'd do the read through and then it would get rewritten because they'd figure out this is a better way to do it or that. So a lot of the time that stuff didn't get filmed, it didn't get to filming stage.
I know you spoke about like directing too. Like how hard is that to like direct and also be like the star in the show or episode? Like how hard is that? Because I don't think people really understand that.
Yeah, it's it's definitely a bigger challenge. I mean, I love it. I love to be involved in the creative process earlier on. So, for me, the key things in going into that were you have to be really, really prepared. So on the directing side, so I would walk through the sets and I'd have a plan for each scene, of course, and a shot list for each scene. I'd know how I wanted to shoot it. I'd have an idea of how I wanted it to come together. I'd work really closely with my cinematographer, who's a great friend of mine now, and shot some of my short films as well. I worked with him to prep everything, walk through. But then you want to give yourself enough freedom as an actor and give the other actors enough freedom on the day to not feel like they're locked into this one way of doing it that you've planned. So you have to be open to that as well. And luckily, I already knew the actors very, very well. So I was coming in working with these actors who we had developed a mutual respect over many years. So that was an easy part, really. And then the other thing is, you can't watch back every take because you would take double the amount of time on set, and time is money. You cannot spend that amount of time. So you have to have a really clear idea of what you want the edit to look like of the show. So I know, for example, if I'm shooting a big wide shot of me and Daniel in a bar and we're having a standoff and it's a big argument, I know I've planned out that I want to see that wide shot at the beginning of the scene so I can see the space and see the characters. And then I know I'm going to be in close up through most of the scene. And there's a moment where he throws me across the room. I'm going to want the wide shot for that so I can see that happen. And then I'm going to want it at the end to show the space between these characters. So that's just an example. But if I have a plan like that, then I know when I shoot the wide shot, and I run to the monitor and I say, can you play it back for me? I'm just watching the beginning and then I go, okay, fast forward to the middle. Okay, let me see that. Yeah, that's good. Okay, let me just see the end. Skip to the end. Okay, yeah, we've got that piece. Or I go, we didn't get the end. Let's just pick it up from the end again and we'll get that. So you really have to plan what you need for the edit. And that way you're not watching every take. You're watching the moments that you know you're going to use.
Oh yeah, that seems hard as hell. I'm not gonna...
It's a lot of prep, but like I say, I wanted to be a director before I even wanted to be an actor. So I've always been in love with the process, and I'm very prepared in everything I do, or I try to be. So that for me was a pleasure in figuring all that out.
No, yeah, 'cause I always hear about actors doing like, oh, I'm directing, also starring out there. I was like, that looks so hard because you have to worry about everybody, and then you gotta also remember your lines, make sure your chemistry is good with such and such. It's just hard as hell. Speaking of Daniel, I want to know, like, like, is there anything on social media going on? Like, all right, some characters call your Klaus, like just Klaus, and then they got like Rebecca calls him like Nicholas, Klaus, and then like Daniel, like his pronunciation is like it's like knee Klaus. So every time, like, how did that all happen? Like, I want to know, like, was it like? Do you guys ever meet up and talk about that at all, or like how is it? Because there's like a big thing going on social media.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, I mean, it's each actor decides what they want to do, I think. So it's not something where I'm like, listen, you have to call me Niklaus. No, like he decides, how he wants to play it, and he developed that accent for Elijah long before I even came to the show, And so, yeah, you decide it, like things like you're never going to hear my character call Catherine. Like he always called her Katerina through the whole thing because he knew her back then. And I decided there's an old world elegance to Klaus. And I decided that he knew her as Katerina when he met her. He's not going to call her that. The writers were always trying to get me to call Rebecca Bex or Beck. And I never did. I say he wouldn't do it. Like to her, he's Rebecca. She's Rebecca. She's his little sister, He looks after her, but he's also stern with her. And I think that's how he addresses her. So those are things that you kind of develop because it's directly about your character's relationship with that character, and it informs it.
No, yeah, I love like the little things like that. Oh, this is so cool. Like I love how Daniel calls it like Niklaus. I was like, oh, it's just so cool. Oh, I know, like I know you said before that you would like come back for Klaus if it was the right story. I want to know like what would the story have to be for that to happen?
You know, I think the thing that's interesting about a show like Vampire Diaries or the originals is when it starts, it's almost sort of more singular in its direction. So if you look at season one, I worked more scenes than I did probably in the later seasons because the show was beginning and it was more focused on Klaus and the family. And as the show grows, there are more and more characters and more threads to follow and storylines that you were invested in as an audience member. And so the whole world grows and it spreads and there's all these amazing stories. And so for me, if I was to do another, if I was to come back as Klaus in a story, I think, first of all, I think it would be interesting to do it like a one-off, like almost like a film for streaming or something like that. And I think it would be interesting to kind of bring it right back to its roots, to bring it to the beginning. So, he went to dust. Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen it. He does die at the end of the originals, and he is ash, and he goes off into the floats into the air of New Orleans. So if there was some kind of spell or something that brought him back after all those years, I think it would be interesting to bring him back in a way where he was on his own. Maybe he didn't even have memories. He just had dreams of this family or of his daughter even. And so it was all about him sort of trying to find this person or trying to piece together his life in that way. So it sort of like becomes more of a singular quest. And I think they did it really well in the Walking Dead spin-off with Daryl Dixon, which I don't watch all of the spin-offs, but I did like The Walking Dead, and I have been watching the Daryl Dixon spin-off. And what they did is they took Norman Reedus to France, and they had his character kind of come to in France, and so it's almost like he's on his own again, and it's starting from scratch again, and he's building these new relationships and these new he's gaining these new enemies as well, and he's trying to navigate his way through this world to get back to the life that he had. And I thought that was a really interesting way of doing it. So something like that, I think, in that world.
That would actually be really cool to see. I'm not gonna lie, like a lost Klaus, like he just doesn't know who he is or nothing like that. That'd be interesting. I wonder how he would. Yeah, I wonder how he would react, like until he realized who he is. That'd be actually interesting. Now, I always wanted like a little spin-off, like even if it's like a movie about like just the family in the beginning, like how you guys turned. I know you got to see flashbacks and all that, but I still just want to see that whole dynamic.
I mean, that was so fun to do. Like all the flashbacks and stuff were really a fun part of the show because we got 1,000 years to play with. So, they cherry picked where we flashed back to, and we did a lot of stuff back in Viking times and, all through the different eras. They even talked about doing something in the 60s for a while, which I'm really disappointed we didn't get to do that. Like, I was ready to go with the 60s stuff. I would have loved to do that. But in general, yeah, it was great doing that period stuff and seeing how this family was in all these different eras.
No, that was cool. No, I would actually be interested in that deal with Klaus though. That would be really fun to see. Yeah. Oh, I want to know, like, is there any TV show right now that you're like watching, or they're like, man, I wish I could be a part of that, or even a movie?
Yeah. I mean, Persia and I watch a lot of stuff. We're huge fans of genre shows, especially. Which is, why we want to focus on that with our company and why we loved the characters we played so much. I think we really love that kind of show. But yeah, I mean, of course, we were huge fans of Game of Thrones and of that show. We've been huge fans of The Last Kingdom, which was an incredible, historical.
That show is so underrated. I'd be telling people that.
I know. Well, that's another show where the fandom really kind of were behind it almost more than the industry, and we loved it. Like, Halo is fantastic, but we watch all kinds of stuff, you know, and then in modern day stuff, like we really love The Bear. We're watching a lot of The Bear and Last of Us. We loved The Last of Us, Stranger Things, of course. Like I love that as well. But sometimes it's nice to watch a show as a fan as well, you know, because I even find it with actors I've worked with. If I know an actor really well and I watch something they're in, like I can appreciate their performance, but it takes you out of it a little bit because you know them, you know that person. And so some things I'm kind of like, I'm happy to watch as a fan just to experience it, you know, get to be immersed in it and to not be thinking about anything else. Because like, obviously the stuff I've been in, I can watch critically, but I can't watch it as just for the story because you're aware of every moment and what was happening behind the scenes and what, you know, how the whole thing came together. And so it's nice, you know, because I'm such a fan of television and film in general, to be able to watch some of it and just appreciate it for the story it is.
No, yeah. How does it feel like? I also want to know, like, because you were in Halo too. Like, people were like, when we found out you're going to be in Halo, it was like, what? And like, how was I seeing that reaction? You're like, wait, no, he's not gonna. He's gonna be in Halo. That's like video game growing up. So like, I was like, dude,
man. Me too. I mean, I'm a massive gamer. Like, I really like video games and still play video games every day or almost every day. And so, you know, I grew up playing Halo as well. And so for me, it was huge. It was incredible. And, you know, being there on set, obviously, and seeing Master Chief and the Spartans and the different, like the Warthog and the Scorpion tanks and just the whole thing was like being in that video game. And, you know, I saw it all on a TV this big when I was a teenager, and now I'm kind of in that world. So it was a dream job in that way. And working with the showrunner, David Weiner was the showrunner on that, who also did a show I was in called Brave New World. And he's one of my favorite people to work with. I just think his writing is incredible. He came into Halo season 2. He joined season 2 and he brought me along for the ride. And so his vision for Halo, where he took it from where it was in season 1 to where the Halo that he kind of created in season 2, I loved it. I would have liked to do another season, man. I won't lie about that. You know, I feel like, I know it was an expensive show for Paramount, and maybe that's difficult to sustain with everything that went on with, you know, them being bought and everything. But like, for me, I would have loved to explore that world a little more. I felt like it was just kind of getting interesting, and I really loved the character and loved being a part of it. So yeah, it was an honor, you know, it was absolutely an honor to
No, yeah, I hate when they do that to shows, because there's like certain shows like, why can't they get another season? Like,
yeah, it's always you know, and with streamers it's more common even, isn't it? Because with streamers you have shows that like a load of money and attention goes on to them, and then they do one season or sometimes 2, and they're done, you know. Yeah, I had a friend of mine did a show. I'm trying to remember what it was called. It was called like, I can't remember, the Bastard Son and the Devil Himself. And a friend of mine I worked on Titans with, he's called Jay Lycago. He's a great actor, great young actor, and he did this show for Netflix, and it did really well on Netflix, and then it just finished after 1 season. And it's amazing, like, you put all of it into it, and he was so good in it. I mean, he's like, I just watched him in a movie on Netflix called Steve with Cillian Murphy, who's so great. And so he's like, now he's got this other job, which is great, and he's doing really well. But I know from like going through that myself and communicating with actors like him about it, you know, you put everything into a show and you invest in it, and you can't help but kind of take it a little personally when if the show finishes, you know, like, oh, come on, man. I could have done more. I wanted to do more. So we were lucky on the originals to know it was finishing after 5 seasons. We were ready. We went into season 5 knowing it would be the last season. I had already done 7 years of Klaus, so I was ready to move on and let it behind. I wanted to have a completed, finished box set to put on my shelf, which is what I got out of that. So, you know, that's a rarity, I think, in these days especially. But yeah, I was really happy that at least with the originals that we got that.
no, yeah. Some shows I'd be like, man, I wish can we get one more season? Like, I feel like this should be like a 3-season minimum for some shows.
I know, and for some reason, I've always had it in my head that like 3 seasons. If you can do 3 seasons of a show, that means it's it's enough. It always feels like 2 seasons is too short, like it's cut off too short. So I remember when we got picked up for season 3 of the originals, I was like, oh, whatever happens now, like the show's a success. We've done this much at least. Like I'm happy with that. You know, if it gets to do more, then that's great. But like it's okay. We made it. You know, we made it.
Yeah, it's like you need the trilogy for a show. Like you just need
I think
1, 2, 3. Yeah, once you get 3, it's just amazing. I want to know, like outside of Klaus, probably, what's your favorite character that you played?
I really enjoyed the stint I did on Titans, and that was playing a guy who was called Sebastian Sanger, who became this villain, Brother Blood. But one of the reasons I really enjoyed that was because the arc I got to play, where the character started to where he ended up, was so vastly different, and I got to play this kind of full dramatic arc, which was so rewarding. But other than that, really, honestly, being on Halo was one of the greatest experiences for the little, teenage me whose eyes were popping out of his head every time he was on set, to sort of like being able to work on a show that was that prestigious and had that level of kind of quality dialogue, and the politics of the characters and everything was at a really high level. I feel like that's elevated genre. It's like it's genre, but it's not apologizing for it. And I think that's the key with making good genre shows, good fantasy, horror, sci-fi shows, is trying to root them in reality and taking them as seriously as if they were, a show about the White House and all the ins and outs and the politics of what's happening there. I feel like it's like you've got to ground the characters in something real so people connect to them, and you've got to take it very, very seriously, and the writing has to be at a really high level. And with Halo, I think for season 2, which I was a part of, the writing was really elevated and really incredible. And like my scene that I did in Halo with my father, who has dementia, and I've got to leave him behind, and I've got this lovely scene with him, and it was just one of my favorite scenes I've ever filmed, because it was so kind of tender, and there was so much subtext like behind what we were saying, and so emotional. And Bill Pattinson, who played my dad on it, was just such a wonderful actor. And so that was probably one of the greatest experiences for me as well.
No, yeah, Halo, man. Yeah, I would have loved to been on that set. I don't care if I just died. I'd be like, man, I'm on the Halo set.
They wouldn't let anyone on, man. Even my wife came out to Budapest, and they're like, there's so many NDAs you have to sign before you get onto that set. It was crazy locked down, But I feel that sometimes as well.
I always want to be a background out there. Like, please just kill me off. Like, I don't want to say nothing. I just want to be there. I'll sign whatever. Yeah. I'll just tell them, hey, I'm there somewhere in the back, like that blurry spot. That's me somewhere.
That's it. Yeah, it's exciting to, and when you're on a show like that, everybody there, you can tell they feel that thing of like we're doing Halo. Like there's something kind of cool about that. And I've been lucky enough, to be a part of 3 massive fandoms, which is obviously the vampire fandom, but then the DC universe with Titans, and then Halo, which is huge. So to be kind of to witness those fandoms and to be involved in those shows was really amazing to me. I'm looking for what else now. Like what's the 4th fandom that I can plug myself into?
Yeah. Oh, speaking of that, like, was there ever, like, before the Vampire Diaries, was there ever a show that you like auditioned for that you didn't get, but you like, damn, I wish I would have gone on that show?
Oh man, so many. Like, are you kidding me? Because here's the thing. Here's what people don't realize, right? I've had a relatively successful career, I think, as an actor, but you still get told no hundreds more times than you get told yes. So you're auditioning for stuff all the time, and you're getting close, and you're not getting it, and you nearly get one part or another. But yeah, like my first audition I ever did was for like one of the Harry Potter films, and I thought I was just gonna like, that's it, I'm gonna get it, and I'm gonna go, and then it's devastating. fascinating. You learn to kind of, your skin gets thicker as you go on. But yeah, there's definitely, like, I think I auditioned for a part in Game of Thrones, and I was like already a fan of the show. I'm talking seasons in, and I'm going, I need to be on this show. Like, surely they will understand that, and they'll see my work I've done and know. And I'm doing a tape for it, for goodness sake. But yeah, it's interesting, man. And then being on the other side of it, like doing the directing for the originals, I got to be a part of casting as well for the episodes that I did. And even when the originals first happened and they were casting the roles to be the other members of, who were joining the show, who weren't coming from Vampire Diaries, I was a part of that casting because I was reading with some of the characters and we were testing chemistry and stuff. And it's really interesting to see like why decisions are made. And actors tend to take it really personally, like, I didn't get this role, and why is it they didn't like me, and sometimes it's such simple things that are nothing to do with you, and it's to do with the mix of characters they have on the show and all of that stuff. So you have to kind of take it with a pinch of salt. But man, yeah, I mean, there's hundreds, and don't even get me started on the movies that I'd like that I got close to, that I'm like, I would have killed for that. It's like Swingers. You ever see that movie where they're like, I would have killed for that part, It's like, there's so much of that, but that's part of the business. If you're lucky, you still maintain a career and you get to be part of a lot of great things, but there's always going to be more stuff that you almost got that you didn't quite get, because that's the nature of it.
No, yeah. I want to know, like, ask you too, like, I feel like there's like a surge of UK actors that really like making it mainstream right now. I just want to know like your thoughts about all that.
I mean, I think in general, there's more of a feeling in the UK that you need to train, so you need to go to drama school. So a lot of the actors that are making it in the US are trained actors, and I think there's a craft. You're coming in with a craft, and you're coming in with a professionalism, and knowing how to put a scene together. And so I think there's that. But so I think that's part of it. Yeah, I think that's part of it, and also there's a determination. Like for me, I always wanted an American career. So I knew early on, like, I'm not going to be an actor that's just going to stay in Britain and do British drama. I did a lot of that when I started, but I really always wanted to have an American career because I grew up watching American films and television, and I knew that was what I wanted to be a part of. So yeah, I think there's also like an ambition that comes with some of us where we got to get across the pond, like we got to fight to get it. So if you can fight to get that far, then you're coming out, you're coming out fist swinging, ready to steal the parts from our American peers and take our own shows and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't know. There is definitely I have a lot of talented peers from the UK. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I want to ask you too. One of my friends, like, they're trying to be an actor right now. I always say they're an actor because they're doing their thing, but they're like, hey, how what should I do to get in? And I told them, like, I think you should do theater because like I feel like all the great actors done theater at some point. I don't know if I gave them right advice. Like, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree, really. I think it's like definitely, I went to theatre school and I did theatre in London in the West End, and it's a great way to learn. You're doing it every night. You're doing the story from start to finish every night, and you're finding different ways of doing it. You can't stop. You can't call line or cut, and you're going through from beginning to end. If you get into a mess, you've got to get yourself out of it. And so you're really thinking on your feet, and you're developing your craft. And I think it's really important. Persia as well came from a theatre background, and she and I bonded on that as well. Like, there's definitely a discipline that you learn from doing theatre. And for me, I had this image when I came to LA first, that there's a lot of people that come to LA who look like models, but they want to be actors, but they're not coming to it with any kind of training or discipline. And so I don't think that's necessarily the case now. Maybe I was a little too judgmental, but I definitely think like having a background in theatre is important, and it's a great place to start. So I don't think you steered them wrong. I think that's decent advice.
I feel like theater is so hard because like I feel like okay, if you don't like a TV show, you can just turn it off, go do your thing. If you like a movie, you can leave the movie theater. Like theater, like if you mess up a theater, you might get booed off stage, or like somebody might throw something at you.
Yeah, it's a baptism of
It's like
fire, you know.
yeah, it's like oh no, like theater. I would be like that's like the one thing I would be like, nah, I couldn't do that.
It's terrifying, and I haven't done a play for years now, so I know like I do want to go back on stage, but I know it's going to be exhilarating, but also terrifying to go back on stage and like, can I still do this? Because it's a little bit of a different craft as well, you know. There's different elements to it certainly. So, like I'm definitely excited about, especially living in New York, you know, about the possibility of doing some theater again. But I know I'm going to be throwing up the night before we go on stage from fear, you know. So it's daunting.
I know, yeah. Also, I want to ask you because I saw like last month they're doing AI actors now. I don't know why they're doing that. You can make an animated show. But I saw like they're doing AI actors. What are your thoughts about that? 'Cause I think that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I think it's pretty terrible, really. Like, you know, I understand. I read an article about it the other day, you know, because they're constantly talking about it in the press, as you know, and, you know, about how the AI actors aren't going to take the place of real actors. And there's going to be a sort of third space, which will be AI films, which is where they'll be utilized and stuff. But I'm not convinced they're going to be able to maintain those guidelines. Like, luckily for us right now, at least the major agencies and some of the production companies are sort of making a stand against it. But I do think there's something inherently like the reason that people connect to characters on shows and on films, I think, is because of that human aspect. And I do feel like, you know, they're training these AI actors on massive amount of human performances. So it's sort of, in a way, it's sort of like stealing these elements from all of these people. And it's a little bit, I find it quite distasteful as well, the idea that like now, you know, Hollywood can have what it's always wanted, a girl who does what she's told and never ages, you know, and there's something really quite kind of despicable about creating something like that and trying to put it into the workplace. And as much as people say it won't take jobs from actors, you know, I don't see how that's going to be a reality because the technology is moving so fast, and it'll just take something for the dam to break on it, I think. But I feel like it's not a good thing, and I feel like people are going to be less and less connected to characters and shows, and that's going to kind of be a sickness in the fandom itself, I think. So yeah, I'm not for it.
I'm not for it either. I'm like, nah, I don't like that at all. Before I let you go, I got some fan questions. 'Cause I told a lot of people I would interview you. The first one is, what are they? Can you please ask Joseph if he knew he had such a huge fan following in India?
In India,
Yeah.
I do. I actually did know that we're very popular in India, and I know that Klaus is popular in India because the fandom is so vocal there. And so I've seen it on social media, and I've never been to India, but I would say probably the number one place that I want to visit that I've never been, because I just, you know, I love the culture. I've watched like a few Indian films which have been incredible, and then of course like some stuff like even not recently, but I watched you know, Dev Patel did a movie called Monkey Man, which he directed and starred in, and was set in India, and like it just people like him kind of introducing me to the culture has been
Same person.
Yeah. I mean, I would. I am aware of the fandom and I appreciate the fandom there, and definitely, Persia and I both have said like we need to go because it's like Brazil. We've been to Brazil twice now, and the fandom there is intense and amazing, and we're so grateful for that level of love and support. So yes, big up India,
Dev Patel. Anything he's in, I gotta go watch.
Yeah, he's terrific. Right? He's terrific. And I watched the making of Monkey Man, and it's amazing what they went through trying to make that movie. And him, you talk about an actor directing while he's starring in a project, and see how he went through. Like, he broke his hand while he was doing it. That didn't stop him. Like, that guy's a legend. He's amazing.
Next one is what is a TV show on? What is a TV show? I think you kind of went over this one. What is a TV show or film you watched recently that you wish you had auditioned for? I think we went over this already.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. There's a lot of stuff that, like, obviously, but definitely, I would have liked to have been a part of Game of Thrones, just because I feel like I'd fit into that world. I tell you what, I would like to be a part of, or what I've watched that I would have loved to be a part of, is Peaky Blinders. Because, mate, Cillian Murphy's probably my favorite actor, I think, at the moment, certainly. Like, I'm on a bit of a binge of watching his stuff. I just think he's so terrific. And that show is just great. It's just great. So
I would have loved to see you on that too. I'm not gonna lie. That's actually a great pick. That actually been the perfect show for you. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, Peaky Blinder. Yeah.
Listen, I agree. I agree. Yeah, I would have loved to.
Yeah, that is the one show you said. Yeah, I would have loved to see you on Peaky Blinders. That would have been really dope. The next one is: what is your go-to method for memorizing long and complex dialogues?
So the brain is like any kind of muscle, where the more you exercise it, the better it becomes at that job. So I learn lines all the time, and so I've become better and better at it just because I'm doing it so much. But really, it's not a secret. It's a really simple thing. Say it out loud. Say it out loud again and again and again and again. And you get better, you get quicker at retaining things, but you got to just keep saying out loud, try different things with it. Sometimes doing like moving around while you're doing it. I've done that. There's techniques that they teach you, where you sort of like throw down a deck of cards on the ground, and as you're picking each of them up, you're saying the lines, so you're sort of locking it into your head with the movement, but really it's just saying it out loud. Say it out loud as many. I heard that Anthony Hopkins reads a script 250 times before he does a job, and I believe it. Like, you want to know those lines so well that you can say them as if they're just occurring to you in that moment. You can play with them, you can do whatever you want with them. You've got to know them really well to do that. You can't be struggling for them.
Nice. Okay. I do believe that when you say stuff out loud, it does stick. The next one is: when you learned how Klaus's story would conclude, sacrificing himself alongside Elijah, did it feel like the only logical or earned true ending for the character you had spent years building?
Yes, it did. When I knew that we were getting a season 5, I met up with Julie Plec, who created the show, with Kevin Williamson. And I said, Julie, 3 words: Klaus dies heroically. Those are that's my wish for it, because I knew they were going to do a spin-off, Legacies, and I knew that the fandom would probably be putting the pressure on for my character to be part of that spin-off, and I knew I didn't want to just go straight into another show playing the character. So I felt like the only way to escape that part of it was to kill the character. I also felt like it's a chance at his true redemption for all the terrible things he's done. If he sacrifices himself to save his daughter, maybe that's a chance at redemption. So for me, it was very fitting, and it was certainly something that I was pushing for from the beginning.
Oh, my bad. I want to pause a fan question. Speaking of Legacy, did you watch Legacies at all, or is it like hard to watch it because you're like, man, I'm part of that universe?
Yeah, no, it's hard to watch, and in fact, I didn't watch season 5 of the originals until about a year later. So I finished the show, and I felt like I need some space from it. It's been 7 years of my life, and I watched every episode of the originals. I wasn't just like fast forwarding to my bits or what. Like, I watched every episode. I was invested in the show, and I wanted it to be great, whether I'm a part of the scene or not. But I definitely needed a break from it after doing 7 years as the character. So I stepped away from watching any of it, and I watched the original season 5 a year later, and then of course they called me to be a part of Legacies on the same day I got offered Titans. I got a call from the producers of Legacies saying, can you come and do an episode of Legacies, and you can direct as well? And I said I can't, because I'm going to Toronto to film Titans. I can't do it. But I said, listen, I tell you what, I'll do the last ever episode. So if you guys, whenever you guys are finishing the show, I'll come back and I'll guest on the last episode. And so then, when Legacies got the news that they were going to finish, I got the email from Julie Plec going, hey, the time has come. I know you said that maybe you do this, so I'm asking you, and I know you're filming, but we're going to figure it out because they're both Warner Brothers shows, so we can make something work for one day. I'm asking if you'll do it. So I said, yeah, of course. How can I say no to that, you know?
No, that's sweet. The next one is wait, hold on, where did it go? I'm sorry. Oh, what is your favorite scene from the originals that didn't include you?
I loved there's a few things. I loved the stuff that they did with Marcel in World War II when they had that stuff with him in the trenches, and like I was so jealous of those scenes he was filming. I read the script like, I want to be part of this so much. Like I'm fascinated in that era, and it was just so great. And he had this great speech. So really, I think that's the bit that I was most envious of, his stuff there. It was just so terrific.
No, that's nice. Okay, that's a good point. And the last question is, what is one thing you want your legacy as an actor to be?
I mean, honestly, that's a good question. I think that really what's been incredible about the impact that Klaus has had already in my career is the amount of people's lives that he's touched, and the amount of people I speak to at conventions and who say online, that watching the show helped them through some kind of time in their life, or the character, was a comfort to them in a time that was difficult, or that they got through this moment because of this show. And and being such a fan of shows and film myself, I do understand that emotional connection to art form, like music as well, it happens with, can get people through really hard times, and they can connect on a real emotional level and feel invested to the point where they care so much about the character, and they really feel like it's a part of their lives. I've been lucky enough to do that. And so I suppose at the end of my career, if I've, continue to impact people's lives in that way, and to improve them for the better, to make people feel better about themselves and about life, and to feel like they were part of something, to feel connected, to connect people in that way, that would be a great legacy to leave behind.
Nice. That's beautiful, man. That's all I got for you. Thank you so much for coming. It means the world to me that you did this. I know you're busy. I know you got other things to do. So it really means the world to me that you came on and do this.
Oh, this has been great, Wayne. Thank you, man. Anytime. I appreciate you making the time for me as well. And thanks. It's been awesome chatting to you. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a beautiful day, man.
All right. You take it easy, man. Thank you. Bye-bye.